Muna had always been skeptical about online dating, despite hearing the success stories of her friends. Her friend Funmi had been particularly insistent that Muna should give it a try, arguing that meeting someone new in person could be difficult in their busy city life. After much persuasion, Muna finally caved and created a profile on one of the most popular dating apps in the city. Her profile was simple: a smile, a description of her work as a graphic designer, and her love for art, books, and adventure. She wasn't looking for anything serious immediately, just someone to talk to, someone who shared common interests. The first few days were a blur of messages that never went beyond small talk. Then, one evening, she received a message from a user named Yusuf. His profile picture was a close-up of a handsome young man with kind eyes, and his bio intrigued her. He described himself as someone who was passionate about helping others and building a future full of opportunities. Yusuf, according to his messages, was an entrepreneur working on a tech startup. Their conversations grew deeper as the days passed, with Yusuf sending thoughtful messages and always asking her questions about her life and dreams. Muna was charmed by his attentive nature and the ease with which they talked. It felt natural, effortless. She told herself to be cautious, but with every message, she found herself looking forward to their next conversation. The evening after their sixth chat, Yusuf asked if they could meet in person. "Would you like to join me for dinner this weekend? I know a great little spot, and I promise I'm just as fun in person as I am over text," he joked. Muna hesitated for a moment, unsure whether she was ready for this leap. She had never met anyone in person from a dating app before. But there was something about Yusuf's sincerity that made her say yes. Funmi was less than impressed when Muna told her about the date. "Just make sure you share your location with me," Funmi advised. "And don't trust anyone blindly, Muna. It's a scary world out there." Muna brushed it off, reassuring Funmi that she'd be fine. "I'll be careful, I promise." The night of the date arrived. Muna stood before the mirror, inspecting her outfit, an elegant blue dress that made her feel both comfortable and confident. She wore just a hint of makeup and let her hair fall naturally in loose waves. With a deep breath, she left her apartment, sent Funmi the location of the restaurant, and headed out. When she arrived, Yusuf was already there, waiting by the entrance. He looked just as he did in his pictures, tall, well-groomed, with a warm smile that immediately put her at ease. He greeted her with a light hug, and Muna instantly felt comfortable around him. Over dinner, their conversation flowed effortlessly. Yusuf was charming and attentive, asking about her work and her life. He listened intently to everything she said, making her feel like the most important person in the room. As the evening wore on, Muna found herself laughing at his jokes, letting her guard down bit by bit. "Would you like to continue the night?" Yusuf asked as they finished dessert. "There's a quiet spot nearby with a stunning view of the city. I promise it's not far, and we can just enjoy the night." Muna felt the hesitation creep in, but the idea of an intimate, peaceful view of the city was too appealing to resist. "Okay, sure," she said, smiling. They left the restaurant together and headed for the secluded location Yusuf had suggested. The drive was a bit longer than she had expected, but Yusuf was friendly and kept the conversation going, making her laugh and feel at ease. The evening took a strange turn as they arrived at the location. It was a small, run-down building at the outskirts of town, far away from the city lights, surrounded by thick trees. Muna felt a small pit in her stomach, but she shrugged it off as an overactive imagination. Yusuf parked the car in front of the building and led her inside. The place was dark, with only the faintest light coming from a small lamp in the corner. Muna felt a twinge of unease but decided to go along with it, chalking it up to the romanticism of the night. After all, Yusuf had seemed so genuine. Yusuf offered her a drink, and Muna, feeling a bit fatigued from the evening, agreed. The drink was smooth, sweet but oddly strong. She took a few sips, trying to mask the faint dizziness that began to creep up on her. "Let's just relax for a while," Yusuf suggested, guiding her to a couch. His voice was soft, his words soothing. Muna was becoming tired, her thoughts beginning to blur. "Don't worry, Muna," Yusuf said with a smile, his eyes gleaming. "You're safe here with me." Before Muna could react, the darkness fully took over, and the last thing she remembered was the chill of the air as she slumped against him. Muna woke up with a start. Her head was spinning, her vision blurry. She tried to move, but her body felt heavy, bound. Panic shot through her as she looked around. She was in a dark, unfamiliar room, lying on a cold concrete floor. Her wrists were tied tightly to a rusty pipe. Her heart hammered in her chest. She tried to scream, but her voice was weak, strained. "You're awake," came a voice from the shadows. Yusuf stepped forward, his expression cold, almost indifferent. His charming demeanor from the night before was gone, replaced by something darker. "Where am I?" Muna croaked, her voice trembling. "Relax," Yusuf said, his voice almost casual. "You're in a safe place, well, safe for me, anyway. It's just business, Muna. You're worth a lot more than you think." Muna's mind raced as she pieced the horrifying realization together. She was no longer on a date. She had been drugged, kidnapped. Yusuf wasn't the man he had pretended to be, he was part of something far more sinister. "No, please," she whispered, struggling against the restraints. "Let me go. I don't want any part of this." Yusuf only smiled. "It's too late for that, Muna. You're exactly what I need." Meanwhile, Funmi had been growing increasingly worried. Muna hadn't responded to her texts or calls. After an hour of silence, she decided to check the location Muna had shared with her. To her horror, the last known location showed up as a desolate building at the outskirts of town. Fumi's heart raced. She immediately contacted the police, reporting her friend's sudden disappearance. Detective Kolapor was assigned to the case, an experienced investigator known for his dogged determination. After reviewing the last known location, Kolapor's suspicions grew. He'd seen this kind of case before, one where a woman was targeted, manipulated, and eventually trafficked. Time was critical. "We need to move fast. This could be a trafficking case," Kolapor ordered his team, his voice sharp with urgency. Kolapor's team worked quickly, tracing the building where Muna had been taken. The location was abandoned, but clues suggested it was being used for illegal purposes. The detectives' instincts were sharp, this wasn't just a random crime. Using surveillance footage and an anonymous tip, Kolapor was able to identify Yusuf as a member of a human trafficking ring. His past was riddled with dark connections. Women, like Muna, had gone missing before. Kolapor knew he was racing against time. The only way to save Muna was to get to her before it was too late. By the time Kolapor and his team stormed the building, Yusuf had already begun to prepare Muna for transportation. He hadn't expected the police to arrive so soon. "Freeze!" Kolapor shouted, his gun aimed at Yusuf, who had a stunned look on his face. Yusuf tried to make a run for it, but Kolapor's team was too quick. They caught him before he could escape, his charm and arrogance replaced with fear. Muna, now freed from her restraints, was in a state of shock but alive. Kolapor made sure she was okay before turning to arrest Yusuf. The case became a national sensation. The story of Muna's abduction, her bravery, and the eventual takedown of the trafficking ring made headlines. Yusuf was arrested, and the full extent of his crimes was uncovered. Muna, though scarred, became a voice for other survivors of trafficking. With Funmi by her side, she shared her story and worked alongside Detective Kolapor to ensure that no other woman would fall into the same trap. Her life was forever changed, but she had fought back and in the end, justice was served. Moral of the story: never let your guard down, even in the face of kindness. Deception wears many faces, and the people you trust the most might not be who they seem. Trust your instincts, and when something feels wrong, speak up.